So the second aspect we're going to look at is resilience. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of this word. You hear resilience everywhere, especially kind of in the corporate world. Right? You've heard of resilience? What does it mean to you?
Oh, I knew you were going to do that. Resilience to me is perhaps being in a situation where, again, situational, but for me, it's about coming through adversity, however which way that is.
Yeah, nice, simple. I wouldn't expect anything different from yourself.
Well, for me, it's about how you deal with things. Something's thrown at you, curveballs thrown at you, or whatever it might be. It's how you deal with it and come out at the other end.
Yeah.
Fair enough, okay.
How would you describe resilience?
Oh, yes,
yeah. You're on the spot.
So, my understanding of resilience is quite similar to actually both of yours. So, essentially, when a situation comes along that is a challenging situation, how well do you deal with the situation? How quickly do you bounce back to your usual self, essentially? So how quickly can you recover from that situation? Which, first of all, it means that we've got to appreciate that in everyday life, challenges happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Situations change, challenges occur. Life is not supposed to be a straight, flat line.
But there are people out there who can't deal with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is where
And that can tilt them off the scale, can't it? Of that mindset that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And the scales of the pessimist, optimist.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? We'll talk about that and briefly highlight it to where does mental health start to come into it, and we'll do a separate one on mental health where I'll share all the wisdomous knowledge that I'm learning on the
That'll be really interesting.
course. Yeah.
Really interesting.
So my theory is, if you think about even on a heart monitor, what's a flat line?
Dead.
Right? Life is not supposed to be a flat line. You're expecting that from life, you may as well be dead. So if you look at the way the heartbeat is, it's constantly like this. What does that teach us? Life is about ups and downs. Genuinely, I believe, without the downs, you don't appreciate the ups. Why is it? Is it because of the cheese?
Yeah.
I know, but I told you love me for it. I love my analogies. Like, they just, people tell me
It's
that.
so true, though.
Is that what the smirk was about?
Yeah.
It's you going, I've never thought of it that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
People do say I have the best analogies. So, life is supposed to be ups and downs. So there's going to be situations and challenges in life. And it's okay to feel down and feel a little bit, oh, this is a tough one, that's all right. Now, what resilience is exactly everything that we've kind of described. Whichever way you put it, it's the same thing. So resilience is, how well do you deal with those tough times? And what I mean by how well do you deal with it, doesn't mean you have to do it always with a smile on your face going, this is amazing, But it's how well do you fare with your mental health and with your physical health while you're going through that challenge, and how quickly do you come back and kind of, once that challenge is passed, learn from it and move on. Now, from all these definitions, I'm sure it's easy to see that you can't just say, am I resilient? I don't. You probably sat there thinking, I think I am. I don't know. I think so. It's not easy to know if you are or not, and it's not as simple as saying I am resilient or I'm not. Nothing is black or white. So what I've got for you is a little test you can do, which you guys can be doing. Okay. So I'm going to basically read out 6 statements to you, and for each of those statements, you're going to score yourself. Okay. So these 6 statements basically relate to a behaviour. Okay. So 6 behaviours that you're going to rate yourself on. So I'll read out a statement. In fact, let me just explain that again. So 6 behaviours is what we're going to focus on. For each behaviour, I'll read out 2 statements. If you agree more with the first statement, you're going to mark yourself, if you strongly agree, mark yourself 1. If you somewhat agree, mark yourself 2. I'm going to try to avoid 3 because I don't like
It's wishy-washy.
It's wishy-washy. I think 3 should be removed from surveys.
So 1, 2, 4, 5.
1, 2, 4, 5, which my OCD is fine with. And then the second statement, if you actually strongly agree with the second statement, you mark yourself 5. If you somewhat agree with it, you mark yourself a 4. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so Your first statement, and I'll explain it as we go along because I don't think I did a very good job of that explanation.
No, you did good. You did
Oh,
good.
good. Okay, so your first statement is this behaviour is all about self-belief. Okay, so what we mean by this is when you're in a difficult situation, when you've got a challenging situation, do you genuinely believe in yourself that you can cope with that situation? Okay, so I'm going to read out your statements in a moment. But this is different to self-confidence. This is not self-confidence. This is, do you genuinely believe that you can get through this situation?
Okay.
So, statement one would be, and you might actually use this language if you think this way, I could never cope with that if it happened. Okay? If you strongly believe and you use this language when something happens or you think about something happening, you think, I could never cope with that. If your go-to is, I could never cope with that, then mark yourself a 1. If you somewhat believe it, so you're like, well, yeah, I do doubt myself, then maybe a 2. Okay? No 3s. They're not allowed.
So is that it? A 1 or a 2?
Statement 2. So either you agree with that statement strongly or something else. The second statement for the same behaviour is, I've coped with tough times before, I'll cope again.
Sorry, hang on. Could we just go back to the first statement? I would never be able to cope with that.
Yeah, I could never
One
cope with that if
being
it happened.
You would
So if
feel
that's
that
your
way.
language and you would
Okay.
use that, 1.
Okay,
If you're like, that does sound a bit like me, 2.
okay, but
That's
never would be
nothing.
5.
Well, never, I'm going to tell you a second statement.
Okay, so we
So you don't
can
necessarily have to score on that.
No, you have
Right.
2
Ah, okay.
statements.
You don't necessarily have to score on
Right,
it.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
fine.
I told you I didn't do a good job of this.
Yeah.
So for each behaviour, you're going to have 2 statements and you're going to look at which one is more you.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I should have said. I'm sorry. That's what I should have said. So your second statement is, I've coped with tough times before, I'll cope again. If this is strongly you, that's a 5. If this is mostly you, that's a 4. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So either you're more, I could never cope with that, or I've coped with tougher, I'll get through it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so either 1, 5, or 2, 4, or a 4.
Okay.
Okay. Your second behaviour is optimism. Now, what we mean by this, I know we kind of talked about positivity. Optimism is about a general feeling of everything will be okay. That's what we mean by optimism. So here are your 2 statements. So at the lower end of the scale, we've got, we expect generally that things will turn out for the worst. We expect it. So it's like, oh, I know how that's going to go. It never turns out my way. If that's your way of thinking strongly, that's a 1. If that's generally your way of thinking, a 2. Or on the other scale we generally expect that things will turn out okay. They'll work out in the end. Again, if that's strongly you, it's a 5. If that's mostly you, it's a 4.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. The third one is about a sense of direction. So what we mean by this is, generally in your life, do you have a sense of direction, a sense of purpose? And now that's really important when you come across difficult situations and challenges in life. That sense of purpose, that sense of where you're going and the bigger picture thinking is what keeps you going. So when tough times occur, when you're in a challenging situation, do you basically feel lost and lose your sense of purpose? So you're in a difficult situation, and when difficult times hit, we tend to feel a bit lost. We lose our sense of purpose, sense of motivation. Strongly, that's the 1. Yeah, that kind of sounds more like me, maybe a 2. On the flip side, we have a clear sense of purpose, even in uncertainty. So yes, this is an uncertain time, but I still have a clear sense of purpose, and I hold on to that. Strongly you 5, kind of you 4. Okay. The third one is about adaptability. So adaptability is...
The fourth
Sorry,
one.
4th one.
Yeah.
It's about... Oh, glad to see you guys are on board.
We're awake. We're awake.
Is about adaptability. Okay, so this is about how easily we can change and adjust ourselves to the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So when any change occurs, and change is inevitable, in fact, the one thing that is absolutely constant and inevitable is change.
Yeah.
So generally, when change occurs, do we struggle to adapt when things change? Okay, so generally, do we really not like change, and we're like, oh God, what, like they changed the packaging on my favourite cereal, I can't cope with this, I hate change. Are you the kind of person to kind of say that? In which case you're a 1. Is it a case that I don't really look forward to change, but I'll muddle through it when it comes, but I do get anxious too? Or on the flip side, we can actually flex according to the situation. So if you're actually somebody who sees change as a good thing, and those people do exist, if you see change as a really good thing and you're like, actually, that's fine, something good will come of it, we'll adapt, we'll change, we'll see what happens, 5. If it's a case of, no, change generally is a good thing, let's see, let's let it come, and we'll adapt a bit, but less enthusiastic 4. So mark yourself down.
I just have not started Asda when they've changed all the food and moved it from one end to the other.
That is frustrating.
I mean, to be fair, that's a whole different level of change, and I'm not with that. I hate it when they change the aisles.
Exactly.
It just reduces my productivity.
Yeah.
Okay. So 5.
Yes.
Right. We've got ingenuity. Okay, so ingenuity, what we mean by that is actually in a difficult situation, when you're in a challenging situation, are you able to stop and think of ideas and options? Okay, so that's what we mean about. Actually, when you're honestly, English is taking a hit today. When you're in a challenging situation, how well can you actually still think of different solutions, ideas? So your statements are, when you're in a challenging situation, actually you tend to just jump into action before actually thinking about what you want to do and the different possible solutions. So you just action. That would be a 1. Again, if you're like, I do think that probably not that much, 2. On the other side of the scale, you have actually, even though you're in that situation, being able to stop, being able to get some clarity, think about the options and ideas, and think about what different possible solutions you have, and then taking action. So again, that's strongly you, that's a 5. That's what you do sometimes, that's a 4. Okay. And finally, seeking support and help. Okay, so number 6 is about seeking support and help. So when you're in a difficult situation or you have a challenge that you're facing, how comfortable are you and how aware are you as to when you need support and help, and actually asking for that? So down the lower end of the scale, it would be you're quite uncomfortable asking for help and reaching out for help. That would be a 1. Sometimes you do, but probably by that time it's a bit too late, or you could have done with the help sooner. That's a 2. On the other end of the scale, we've got actually you're quite comfortable knowing when you need help and asking for that help. That'll be 5. 4 would be sometimes, but I should do it more. Okay.
Yeah.
So those are the 6 that we've covered. Now, these 6 behaviours are generally what will make you or help you be resilient. So if you're higher up the scale, if you're around a 5 on each of these behaviours, you will be more resilient.
Are we not revealing our scores?
Yeah.
You can in a moment, yes. But if you are basically a 5 on everything, that means you're actually probably very resilient. So when you're in difficult situations, you've got a challenge, you can actually get through that quite well, quite quickly and in a good way, and actually bounce straight back to where you were. On the behaviours where you're scoring low, so that's what's good about this, is actually you can pick up key behaviours. So you might be like, well, I'm really good at this, but I need some work on this. By you working on that, you become more resilient. And for those people who are quite low on the scale, that shows that you would be less resilient. So when situations happen, they really get you down. You know, you find it difficult to actually get out of that, and it starts affecting you. It starts affecting your mindset. It starts affecting things around you, and actually you find it really difficult to get through that situation and back to yourself. So,
shall I just read out the scores? Or
Yeah.
just sort of say, I'm at the 4 and 5 scale.
on
All of them. All of them.
4 and 5 scale. And generally, then, would you agree with? Do you feel you are quite resilient
Yeah.
when it comes to situations?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is there any areas where you looked at and you're like, I could do with improvement on those?
I think it was 2 and 3. I scored 4.
2 and 3. So
Everything's-
actually believing that you're gonna be able to get through that situation and cope.
Yeah. But I think that's more self-doubt
Mm.
than anything else. But I do get through it. And then what was number 3?
So not
Direction
2.
and purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that they were the 2 I scored 4 on, and the others were 5.
Okay.
Interesting. So I scored myself in total out of 30, 24. So I scored myself actually lower than I was expecting at the beginning. Adversity, fine. You know what? Stuff what comes my way, I will deal with it. So that was a 5. Direction and purpose, that's a 5 because I know what I'm bloody doing. Optimism, though, was for me a 4, not a 5. And the reason for that is because we were discussing Parker earlier on. I'm not naively optimistic, I guess. I'm not overly optimistic. I'm also a realist, and I think sometimes that means you can't be an eternal optimist.
But you still scored yourself a 4.
A 4, because
Okay.
overall I am more optimistic than I'm not optimistic. That's how I viewed it.
But you're allowing for a little bit of balance, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. But the 2 that I rated myself on lower, number 6, seeking support, because by your scale, 5 was you're prepared to go out there and ask for help. I'm not prepared to go out there and ask for help because I don't trust other people to necessarily do things as well as I do. Maybe that's because I'm a bit of a control freak.
I was going to say, that's called
That
control
is
freak.
because I'm a control freak.
Do you think that's the reason why, or the only reason why they don't ask for help? Because this, by the way, is one that most people would score low on, is actually seeking support and help.
I don't feel I need people's help, I guess. I'll be honest with you, I've never come across a situation where I felt like I need somebody else's help and support.
But in that situation, have you thought about, if I've got somebody's help and support, would I be able to deal with the situation more effectively or quickly? Do you think about that?
No.
So it's not just about do you need it or not, it's actually stopping and thinking, do I need it or not? If I actually took help, would I be able to deal with this situation? Rather than hitting crisis mode and then going, now I need help.
Or is it, like me, I'm happy to go and ask for that help, but actually I don't necessarily tend to or need to, but I'll be happy if I had to, but I will just get on with it.
Correct.
And get on with the situation. But if I need to then reach out, I will.
Yeah.
But in most cases, I don't.
Yeah.
What's your scale of need to? That's what I'm trying to get to. What's your definition of need to? Is it when you hit basically a roadblock, or do you consider it before? Like, for example, if you think of it as a project.
Yeah, I think of all the avenues that I could go down
Yes.
and where I needed to go for help should I come to that roadblock.
Okay.
That's how I would do it, and that's why I think I scored a 5. Myself a 5. That I know where to go or who to reach out to, but 9 out of 10, I don't usually explore those avenues or go down those avenues because I don't need to.
So it is something you consider.
And consider it.
Yeah.
So maybe I should
That's
score
quite right.
4, maybe not 5, I don't know.
No, I agree
But-
with you, because it's something you factor in and consider. It's not a case of you exhaust everything and then say, oh, okay, I really need help. You actually consider it and factor
It's
it
in
into
the planning.
Yeah.
It's in the planning. What if I need to, then I can go to that person can do that
Yes.
for me, or
Yes.
that place, not necessarily person.
Yeah.
Correct. So I
or
do
resource,
the same thing.
Or resource.
I do the same thing as you, but it's a case of, okay, well, if I can avoid having to rely on others, I'll do
Yeah.
it myself. That's why for me,
Okay.
I put myself at the other end of the scale, because I know I can go to this person, for example, but I choose not to.
But the question is, with this, because I'm the same, with this whole, that language is typically why people score low on this with, I don't want to bother, I don't want to bother somebody else, I don't want to burden somebody else.
Possibly,
So it's a case of, are we muddling through because we don't want to ask for help? Or can we actually deal with it with ease without asking
But
for
for
help?
me, this is about capability. Am I capable of doing what I need to do without asking for help and advice? And most of the times, I am. Most of the times, not all the time. That's why I'm not a one on this.
But at no detriment to yourself.
I wouldn't have thought so.
Okay, then that's fine.
I wouldn't have thought so.
But that is what people score the lowest on, because
I
we're
can
very
imagine.
quick to help others, but we're not so quick to ask for help
Yeah,
ourselves.
yeah, I think that's a very fair point.
Hmm.
And the other one that I kind of scored myself, and actually I gave myself a 3, but we said we weren't going to do 3s, was the ingenuity. So question 5, just do me a favour,
Yeah.
read out question 5 again.
So that's about when we're actually going through, when we're in a challenging situation or we have a difficulty, it's, do we jump straight into action?
Right, okay.
Or do we have
That's
the
it.
capability to stop, think of all our options, and actually then make a deliberate decision?
Again, for me, that's situational. There are times where it will be a case of, look, if we just got to bloody do it, I'll bloody do it. Without thinking, you just jump in and you do it. But then there are other times where it's a case of, well, actually, you know what, let's sit back and just think about this before we take any action. So for me, that's why it's sat on the fence, because it's very situational.
Okay, so let me offer you a different way of explaining it. So when I have a problem, I am not really able, I get a bit of brain fog. I'm not really able to think of solutions or what I need to do, so I just do. So do you get brain fog when you hit difficult times? Or are you able to still have that clarity and think of different options?
Good point. I think I probably still have the clarity. It's more about the action. It's a case of, do I just do it now, or shall we sleep on it? Let's take the emotion out of it, for example, and think about it tomorrow. So yeah, no, I think you're kind of right there. Maybe it should be a bit higher, I guess.
Yes, then you are higher up.
Yeah.
Because I know I score a bit lower on that. Depending on how big the challenge, problem, situation is, I sometimes get brain fog. I'm not able to, it affects me sometimes so much, I'm not able to actually stand back and think, okay, what are the possible solutions? What should we do? I just either stop or I just keep going. So I know that's an area I have to work on because I get that brain fog.
Yeah, but I think, look, not to perhaps dwell on this exercise too much, but I think what you're kind of implying there is whether or not you can think clearly in certain situations, because your emotions sometimes take over.
Yes,
and it's very difficult to pull yourself out of that situation and just say, you know what, he's really peed me off.
Yeah.
And you got to sometimes remove the emotion out of the situation, because what you might do is not take the right action.
Yeah.
And I think that's, and you're very emotive in how that happens.
I am.
Whereas I'm a bit more practical.
Which is why I get brain fog. So you're absolutely right. What I actually need to do is work with the emotions, and you hit on something really important there. You said we may not make the right decision. I'm telling you, you absolutely won't. If somebody is in a high emotional state, whichever high emotional state, it could be you're in absolute happy ecstasy.
Yes.
It could be you're incredibly sad,
Yeah.
you're incredibly angry. Any height of emotion, you will never make the right decision because
Yeah,
the
I
correct
agree,
part of your brain is not working.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So we are actually going to do a session on managing your emotions. Okay, so we're actually going to talk about what you want to do in the situations where naturally your emotions will take over. What do you do to manage those emotions so that actually you're in the right frame of mind to then make decisions?
Yeah.
So you're right, with the whole brain fog thing, what I actually need to do is work with my emotions to not allow it to impact me that much. Then that fog will lift. Or if I'm not able to do that, ask for help.
Interesting.
So how did you find that?
Oh, that was a good exercise.
Yeah, eye-opening.
Yes.
Yeah.
So hopefully you got something from it too. So that just gives you an idea into actually, are you as resilient as you would like to be? And if not, you know specifically which behaviours you want to be working on to increase your resilience. So that brings me on to the third thing we were going to talk about. So far we've talked about gratitude, so starting from that basic piece. Then we talked about actually resilience, which to be fair, we said resilience, but we talked about 6 behaviours within that. And now we're going to talk about your general mindset, and we've broken this into fixed mindset versus growth mindset, or the other way around, growth versus fixed. So, welcome to Confidence Talks. This